As autistic adults, what should we be doing when we are feeling sensory overload, a meltdown coming on, or a shutdown in process? Simple. We should be self-regulating. In this video, I'm going to break down what self-regulation is for us autistic adults, the benefits of self-regulating, and the risk we're taking when we don't self-regulate. 6 strategies you can use to self-regulate, and more. So let's get started. Hey, Define Yourselfer, I am Chris Mitchell from theconfidentautistic.com. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to check out this video, and I really do mean that. I'm an autistic adult, late diagnosed, an advocate for autistic adults, a multi-certified life coach, and a digital creator empowering other autistic adults and the entire world to embrace autism confidently. If this resonates with you, please consider supporting our channel. You can show your support by liking, sharing, and commenting on this video. But the best way that you can show your support for what I'm doing for and within the adult autism community is to subscribe to the channel. And when you do subscribe, please do not forget to ring the bell to be notified of new videos and when I go live. Self-regulation for autistic adults refers to the ability to consciously manage our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in response to different situations. We often need to self-regulate in response to challenging situations, including social communication difficulties and executive functioning difficulties, and to sensory sensitivities, including responses to either sensory overload or when we are sensory seeking because our sensory needs are not being met. Simply put, self-regulation is the skill of actively coping with stressors and regulating our internal state to respond appropriately to said stressors. When we are self-regulating, there are 4 key areas of regulation that we should address, and they are emotional regulation. And that means recognizing and managing emotions like frustration, anxiety, or excitement to avoid overwhelming reactions. Sensory regulation. Now, sensory regulation means we are identifying and managing sensory overload from stimuli like noise, light, sound. I guess that's noise. Okay, noise, light, sound, touch, feel, which I guess is the same, taste, smell, any of our senses. Now, sensory regulation not only about sensory overload, but it can also include sensory your sensory needs not being met, which I call sensory sensitivities. Another key aspect we need to be doing when we're going through self-regulation is impulse control. And impulse control is thinking before acting and resisting impulsive behaviors. And that basically means we don't just, do things impulsively. We think them out and we resist that impulse. Now, this does sound a little bit like ADHD territory, but it is common. It's one of the things that overlaps between ADHD and autism. I personally think we see it a little bit more on the ADHD side of things, but it can exist in both. I've been a very impulsive person, and I'm not just talking about financially impulsive, buying stuff at stores, but that came to an end when I got my credit card bill. At least it dialed it back a lot. But I'm also at times very impulsive in making decisions. Now, a lot of decisions I analyze, but there are certain decisions I will make quickly. And most of those are when I'm frustrated by something, I will impulsively blurt out something, and usually it's inappropriate. And the 4th key factor or activity we should be focusing in on when we're working on self-regulation is attention regulation. Again, this sounds like an ADHD trait, and it may be a little bit more common in the ADHD world than it is in the autism world, but it can be a problem for us, autistic adults, that is. And attention regulation means we need to make sure we're focusing on tasks and maintaining concentration despite distraction. So the distractions we're talking about could be any of those sensory issues, whether they're being met or not being met. And because we're being distracted by our sensory sensitivities, we need to be able to focus in and stay attentive to what we're doing and not let that stuff distract us. Now, when we use self-regulation as a reaction to stress, which that's what we've been talking about so far, we use self-regulation as a reaction to stress, anxiety, sensory sensitivities, etc. The first thing we should be doing is identifying the trigger or triggers that caused us to need to stop what we were doing and to seek time to self-regulate. Now, when we're able to recognize what triggered us, we can do two things. We can both engage in self-regulation traits and techniques that can help us get back to our baseline and be able to handle whatever triggers are causing our need for regulation. And we're learning about triggers that this is information we can use in the future to help us prevent from getting into the situation. So we are recognizing our triggers. Let's say maybe one of our triggers is a noisy environment, like a mall. Well, maybe malls are not that noisy as they were in the 80s, but noisy place like a mall, a concert, a store. It doesn't matter, somewhere with a lot of noise, right? And that's one of your triggers. Now that you've identified that trigger, you're going to be able to do what we're going to be talking about in a moment, being proactive with self-regulation. And that's really a cool thing. And we're going to get into that in a moment. So this is why you want to identify those triggers. So when they're coming, you can be prepared for them. Now, self-regulation, like I mentioned, uh, it is often used in reactive. However, self-regulation can and should also be a proactive procedure, which includes making time each day to practice self-regulation techniques. And when you're going to be potentially exposed to a known trigger. That's why when you're going through self-regulation in a response to something, you want to identify what that triggered it, what triggered that need. So like I said with the noise, right? You say, okay, great. I'm going to be going out to a movie tonight, right? It's going to be loud. It's going to be noisy. I need to self-regulate before I go to that movie. So maybe a half an hour before I go, I'm going to go and practice the self-regulation techniques that Chris is going to share with me in a few minutes. And you may know that after I go to that event, let's say it's a concert and all, when I get home, I'm going to need a few hours and probably will need a few hours depending on how loud the concert is to self-regulate and kind of get back to my baseline because everything's going to be overwhelming to me during that. But I really want to go to this concert. And you should go to the things you want to do and not let your triggers limit you. And by knowing about self-regulating and doing it before and after and scheduling the time to do it before and after, you're going to be able to enjoy the things or have a better chance to enjoy the things you want to enjoy in life while taking care of your autistic needs. We self-regulate to cope with stressors and regulate our internal state to respond appropriately to any situation we encounter or experience in daily life. One of the best places to engage in self-regulation is a quiet space in your normal environment, such as your home. And you know your house pretty well. You know where you can get away from things. For me, it's my office here. This is my space. My wife, we share a little bit. She comes in occasionally and does some work. But most of the time, this is my space. I have total control over everything in this room. And this is where my quiet space is. This is where I can go when I need to self-regulate. Now, I have a couple of other places I use in the house to self-regulate. Sometimes I will take a shower just to get away from everything and self-regulate during the shower. Sometimes in bed at night. When I'm laying in bed and I'm alone, I can self-regulate there. Now, during the nicer weather, I love going outside and sitting on a bench we have on the front porch or at the patio, the patio table on the patio, and just enjoy listening to sounds and the smells and looking at nature for self-regulating. So those are some of my quiet areas. I'm sure you have some at your house. Share in the comments where your quiet space is in your normal environment. And because you already know where those are. And you can retreat to those spaces when you need to regulate. Now, I also recommend that when you are in an unfamiliar environment, let's say you're over at a friend's house. Maybe your boss is having a big barbecue, right? You when you get there, which I recommend you to self-regulate before you go, especially there can be triggers there. When you get there, kind of scope it out and look for places you can go to for a few moments of quietness. Maybe it would be appropriate to step out in the front porch for a few minutes. Maybe it'd be appropriate to take a bathroom break and spend a few extra minutes in there, just self-regulating, to scope out safe places, be respectful of the person's property, but safe places you could go that could be quiet, that could help you when you need to self-regulate. And if you're at a venue, I go to events at times and they get very loud. You can go to conference and all, get very loud. So one of the things I do is I go around the event area and I look for little corners and hallways or rooms that are open that I can go and just chill out in for a few minutes and self-regulate when needed. So when you go to somewhere you're not used to being at, first thing I like to do is scope out where my quiet, safe spots will be. I mentioned in other videos, I have a great nephew, and he had been diagnosed on the spectrum. He he comes over occasionally since about the age of 3 or 4. And when he gets overwhelmed by something, and he really does not like the word no, he's getting better at it, but he does not like that word no, which is not uncommon in the autism community. And there's a reason for that, because when we're told no, we had a plan. We were going to be doing something. Now we've been told no. You just disrupted our plan, our routine that we had planned out, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. So it's very frustrating. But that's a little sidebar. But when he does get overwhelmed at our house, there's a corner he goes into and he is there by himself. And we used to try to pull him out of that corner. And I did some research on that. And I explained to my family when he goes there, he needs that space. We need to respect that boundary. We let him have that area, and he'll come out when he's ready. And that really has helped him. Now, I know that we talk in the channel mainly about adults with autism, and that strategy may work for some adults who are on the spectrum, but it will work great if you have a kid that's on the spectrum as well. That when they go to an area, the safe spot, you just need to let them be, and because that's their instinct. That's what we need to do. That safe spot, that quiet spot, can help us, and we use that for self-regulation. So when we go somewhere, we want to look for quiet spaces that we can retreat to if we quickly need to get away and engage self-regulation techniques to manage overwhelming sensations so you know where they are when you need them. That's why you kind of scope out the house. Now, don't do it in a way like I'm casing the house to rob it later, but you kind of look around a little bit and say, oh, wow, there's a place I could go if I need to. That can be quiet for me to self-regulate if I need to do that while I'm here. There are many ways we can self-regulate. And in this video, I'm going to share 6 of them with you. And if you have other ways that you self-regulate, share them in the comments. I would love to hear what they are. And the first is utilizing sensory strategies. When we are sensory seeking, we may engage in repetitive behaviors, aka stimming. And some common stims that are used when self-regulating include rocking, hand flapping that is, tapping, fidgeting, and including using a fidget or stem toy or device like my needle ball. Additional sensory strategies may include seeking out other specific sensory needs like listening to music or calming music, that is, using a weighted blanket. Oh, I love my weighted blanket. I have 2 of them. I have one in the bedroom and I have a smaller one that I use in my recliner. And I like the one in the bedroom, but the one that I really like is the one in the recliner. For some reason, that helps me even more than the one in the bedroom. But I'm off topic again. Wearing Another way that we can deal with sensory needs is wearing specific textures or avoiding specific sensory input. So if you're going to go somewhere and you're not going to be home and you want to make sure that you're okay, you want to wear something comfortable. That's proactive. But what I do when I feel a sensory need, I have this windbreaker. I've had this windbreaker for almost 20 years, and we got to find a replacement one because nothing lasts forever, right? And inside the windbreaker is mesh lining, and I will put that on. Excuse me, and that helps me regulate. That helps me calm down. That texture and that feeling of the mesh that's inside that windbreaker, it's just so soothing to me. Now, I mentioned this in other videos. I don't like wearing shirts a lot. They bother me. I have to on the videos, and in public you have to. But normally, I go around without a shirt on and here at home, and I need sensory input. I will grab that jacket just because I love that mesh feeling. It helps me regulate. It helps me calm down. It helps me come down from having sensory overload from noise, from sight, from smell, whatever. It is really a soothing self-regulatory tool that I have in my toolbox, I guess you could call it. The second way we can self-regulate is by practicing mindfulness techniques. Now, practicing mindfulness techniques means doing things such as deep breathing. And there's some breathing exercises that you can find on the internet. A meditation or journaling are great ways to practice mindfulness because they help us increase our awareness of an internal state, emotions, and physical sensations in the present moment, which allows us to manage our emotional response to situations, including sensory sensitivities. So, practicing mindfulness means we become mindful or aware of ourselves and our environment and what's going on and how the two are interacting, how the environment's affecting us, and how we are responding to it. So it's a great thing to do. The third way we can engage in self regulation is actively identifying and managing our emotional triggers. Now, we talked about that a little bit earlier that when we begin not social, self regulation, I don't know where my mind is today. Social regulation, self regulation. Okay, I'm going to get it right. Self regulation, that we need to identify the triggers so we know how to regulate our senses and we can learn what our triggers are so we can prevent emergency self-regulation times that come up in our lives that can really be disruptive. But actively identifying and managing our emotional triggers is important. And it's one of the techniques we should be doing. This is often done when practicing mindfulness techniques. So if you do some mindfulness activities, you at the same time could be identifying and managing your emotional triggers. Now, actively identifying and managing our emotional triggers allows us to respond to our feelings of being overwhelmed with additional calmness and clarity. Now, speaking of clarity, I want to be a little bit clear here. I talked about, when you start your self regulation, I knew it was going to come to my mind. You want to identify what triggered you to have that need. And that's true. That could be a trigger. It could be anything. It could be noise, smell, whatever your triggers are. It doesn't matter. But there's also emotional triggers. And this could be a little bit different. There could be things that are triggering you and your emotions react. Like maybe somebody said something. And it's not a noise, it's just a phrase they use. And they said something that hurt your feelings or made you feel bad about yourself or um, made you feel embarrassed or maybe it could have been rejection. You felt you were being rejected. That could be an emotional trigger by what they say to you. And you need to take that time to self regulate, to respond appropriately to it. Because I know when I get hurt, one of my responses, and I think this is normal for a lot of people, I think it is especially for kids, but is somebody hurts me, I'm going to hurt them back. And I'm good, and I'm real good at that verbally, and I gotta manage that. I gotta realize, not to respond in attack, you know, turn the other cheek, as they say in biblical circles. And I do that by reminding myself of a few things, which we're going to talk about in a moment, go into self talk a little bit more. But I will remind myself that person has a right to their opinion, and I have a right not to agree with it. So I do a lot of self talk in those situations to help me regulate and de escalate myself before I do or say something that's going to make the situation worse. And in some cases, potentially, if I smart off to the wrong person in public, can be a physically dangerous situation for myself. Now, the fourth thing we can do when we're self regulating, and this is one of my favorite things to do, is create a structured routine. Now, obviously, routines are very, very important to many of us on the spectrum. It is to me because it gives us some normalcy and predictability. And we like that. We like knowing what's going to happen. We're the type of people that will jump to the end of the mystery book to find out who did it because we want to know now. We don't want all the suspense. We just tell us, don't beat around the bushes. And, you know, when people are telling me stories, get to the point. Don't tell me the actual stuff. I don't need to know about it. I just need to know the facts. Okay, that's just me. Now, you could create a routine to respond to whatever is causing you to go into sensory or needing to go into self-regulation. I should say, it could be a sensory issue, whatever. But the other thing that you could do by creating a routine does not even have to be related to why you're taking time for self regulation at that moment. But by creating a routine, you're occupying your mind. This is what happens for me. I start thinking about something else. And that routine, I get so into it that while I'm planning out this routine, maybe a new routine on how I'm going to take care of this, uh, what day of the week I'm going to take care of all this filing I have to do, the chores around the house, or I'm going to do things differently, going to tweak one of my routines. It distracts me enough that whatever was causing me stress, anxiety, etc., I kind of forgotten about it. And it distracts my mind enough that that level of stress will go down, level of anxiety will go down. So this is why, for me, creating structured routines is a great strategy. Now, for you, maybe just thinking about something else. And you're stressed out and all. You can think of your happy place. You can think of, oh, I remember a really funny scene on The Big Bang Theory. And there's one that really always leads to my mind. There's many. I really love that show. That show really helped me come to terms with me being on the spectrum, actually. But the gang was been invited to try to entice girls to go into the field of science because we are girls do not often get involved in science than they should, and it's more of a boy thing. And I won't go into all the reasons of it, but there's many. And they were going to do this, and they were asked to do it by the college and to do a demonstration and all, whatever, trying to get young girls, middle school kids, girls interested in going to the field of science. So Sheldon sitting down at his computer, and one of his friends said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm typing in, how do I get young girls excited?" Probably not the best thing to type into a search engine because you're going to get responses you don't want. And if somebody's watching, you may be put onto a particular list, and we don't want to be on that list. But that busted me up laughing. That I understand what he's trying to do, but you need to add a few more keywords to that sentence, like how do I get young girls excited about a career in science? A little bit more specific. You got to do that at times, but that something like that. If I think about something funny like that, that can decrease my anxiety and my stress and give me an escape from any sensory overload that I'm feeling at times. And that will help me self regulate and get back to a baseline where I can participate in whatever activity I just stepped away from. Now, the fifth thing we can do during self regulation is to participate in physical activities. Now, this could be as simple as uh, from moving around. And I mean, right now I'm swiveling in my chair. It could be tapping your foot in the floor. It could be tapping your fingers on the desk. It could be, just stretching a little bit, whatever. Or, it could be as elaborate as taking a walk, going for a jog, going for a run, riding a bicycle, going to the gym and working out, lifting weights, whatever it is. Just some kind of physical activity can help us by releasing the tension that we're feeling, and that will improve our mood and our ability to encounter and manage any sensory overload, stress, or anxiety we are feeling as autistic adults. And the sixth strategy we could try to do when we are self regulating is positive self talk. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but let's dive a little bit deeper into it. Positive self-talk is giving yourself a quick pep talk where you remind yourself that you got this, that you can handle whatever comes to you. And self-talk can help you self-regulate yourself during a time of dysregulation. One of the things I like to tell people, and I advise people to do, I do this myself. I'm in a situation, it's stressful, right? I will think about other situations that were stressful for me, that I thought at that time I can't handle, that I did handle, and I'll remind myself, look, if you were able to handle example A, you certainly got this. And that other stressful time was preparing you for what you're going through now. Those are the types of things you can and should be saying to yourself in self talk to help you get through whatever uh, triggers or challenges you're facing at the current moment. Now, when you use self regulation as a response to a situation and you're ready to re engage with others, now this is not talking about proactive, this is when we're reactive. If you have any needs that others can fulfill, let's say you need a glass of water, you need a few moments alone, maybe a few crackers to help you, whatever. Maybe can we turn down the lights a little bit? Can I have a little quiet space? Whatever. Be sure to advocate for yourself by sharing them with a safe person. And safe people are usually those who you already have told about your autism and understand it and are an ally of yours. There are three major reasons or benefits of self regulation for us autistic adults, and they are when we self regulate, we improve our social interactions. Being self regulated allows us the ability to manage emotions in social situations, which can lead to a more positive interaction with others. And when we have these positive interactions, others will think good about us. And most importantly, we will think good about ourselves. And that will give us confidence to do more in our lives as autistic adults in an holistic world. Another benefit of self regulation is that self regulation reduces stress and anxiety. During self regulation, we should be recognizing and managing our triggers, which can help us mitigate stress and anxiety levels. So self-regulation does help. And when we have too much stress and anxiety in our lives for a prolonged period of time, we could be risking health concerns. I mean, serious, and not just mental health. I'm talking about physical health. And for some people, too much stress or anxiety can cause high blood pressure and other cardiac issues and other physical ailments. So we really want to self-regulate and try to minimize that stress and anxiety because we do not live in a world that is stress-free and anxiety-free. So we got to find strategies on how we can survive in this world that we are living in right now. And the third benefit of self-regulating is that self-regulation gives us the gift of enhanced independence by allowing us to develop skills and strategies that allow for a greater autonomy in our daily lives. When we self-regulate, we're going to be in control of our lives. No one else is. Not our emotions, not sensory triggers, nothing else. We will be in control. So this is why self-regulation is so important. So we are in control. We're at the steering wheel. No one else has that power over our lives. Somebody wants to listen to loud music, we self-regulate, and we're not going to let that person's loud music derail us from whatever we want to accomplish. This is one of the key reasons self-regulation is so important. If we choose to neglect or ignore our need for self-regulation, as autistic adults, we may experience significant challenges like meltdowns or an increased number of meltdowns, outbursts or increased number of outbursts, increased anxiety, irritability, difficulty concentrating, social withdrawal, impulsive behaviors, and even, in some cases, self-harm, as our emotions can become overwhelming and take over us. And that's where we're losing that power to be in charge of our lives. We're letting our emotions be in charge. And like I talked about a moment ago, a benefit is the autonomy we can have and being able to do what we want for our lives and we being in control. We don't self-regulate. We're giving our emotions the chance to set the tone for our lives, to limit us, to cause us to have setbacks, to failures, and damage our reputation and our self-confidence and our respect for ourselves. So uh, ignoring it is very dangerous. Now, for us, it has a lot of risk. And those risks also include potentially disrupting our daily lives and interactions with others. That's how bad it can get if we do not take the time to self-regulate. So we talked about self-regulating as a response to stress, anxiety, sensory sensitivities, etc. And that's a great strategy. But like I mentioned in this video, and I really want to get this point across, it's best to be proactive instead of reactive. I mean, I would rather spend 15 minutes each day doing some self-regulation than not doing it, going out in the world, something triggers me, and I have to stop what I'm doing, spend maybe 30 minutes self-regulating to get myself back to a baseline, and then feeling that shame and embarrassment the rest of the day. Proactive, in my opinion, is better than reactive. But even if you're proactive in your self-regulation, doing self-care activities, which self-regulation is part of self-care, you may still have times that you're going to have to use self-regulation as a reactive strategy as well as the proactive. And that's okay. But I can almost guarantee you that if you do this right and you practice self-regulation before, like maybe once a day, or like I mentioned in this video, you know you're going to go somewhere, it's going to have a lot of noise. For example, that's a sensory trigger. It could be any sensory trigger. You know that's coming up, so you do some sensory regulation time before it and or after it, and that's going to really benefit you, and it's okay to do that. Self-regulation is something we all need to do. Yeah, sure, Aulistics may be able to do it quicker, but you know what? By us doing this and diving deeper into it, we're better at it than they are. Well, actually, it's not a competition. It's only an exhibition. But please, please make sure self-regulation is part of your self-care activities, because you will benefit from it, and it will make your life less challenging as a autistic adult on the spectrum. Now it is your turn. Share your thoughts on self-regulation, what you do that helps you, and anything else on the topic of self-regulation in the comments on this video or in the conversation in our Facebook group, Autistic Adults Embracing Autism. Link to that group is in the video description. So until next time, this is The Confident Autistic, reminding you that now is the time for you to embrace autism confidently. Join me live Thursday nights for The Confident Autistic Live, where I answer your questions, we discuss this week's videos, offer support, and more. The fun starts Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time in the US of A. Be sure to click the bell when you subscribe to the channel to be notified when the party begins.